Yeah, well, that's what happened. Yeah. All right. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
How are we doing? All right. I have no idea if anybody's out there watching us, but if you are, hello. And hopefully there'll be a way that we can kind of be a bit interactive. I'm going to be probably a little bit louder than normal because I don't know how well they're going to be able to hear me. So I won't yell, but I'll try to be as I don't know, as loud as I can be without it being offensive anyhow.
You're going to project.
I will try. Yes, I will. And I will try to enunciate as well as I can.
Clear and distinct.
All right.
That's what we need.
All right, well, welcome to our, what is this, May edition of our Buttons class. And I usually start these classes out the same way, so if you've been to one of these before, this will not sound surprising, at least from a starting perspective. These classes are designed to self-destruct. They are designed for me to assign a Buttons class to a certain day and for no one to show up. And because you all know exactly how to run your instruments from top to bottom, and that hasn't happened in 17 years, so I guess we'll just keep doing them until it does. But that's the goal here. So we're not limited to having to learn a song, so we'll spend the majority of the hour just kind of taking questions, and I will have, I know I promised some of you a larger Lowry here, and it's not here at the moment. It was supposed to be here. I have an Inspire coming in, which is very similar to the Rialto, but it wasn't able to be picked up yesterday. So hopefully by maybe this time next week, we should have one of those in the studio, and we can utilize that as well. All right, so I know most of you here had Annie's song this week, and I don't know if your questions are revolving around that or just general questions. So I guess without further ado, we'll just jump into one. Who's got a question I can answer? Ray, go ahead.
All right. My Rialto has a setup for Annie's song.
Yes.
Should I use that?
You can. You certainly can.
And just shut off the pots that...
So there, what Ray is referencing is song setup. For those of you that aren't familiar with that, and those of you at home that may not be familiar with that, song setup is a feature that Lowry's have that allow you to potentially set a song, or the instrument up rather, based upon the song that you chose. And I often equate this, maybe you've heard me use this comparison before, but the way that feature was introduced to me was that they painted this picture. They said, imagine going into a music store 50 years from now and looking at an instrument that had no buttons on a panel, but you knew it was electronic. And you said to the person that was working at that music store, well, how do you set this thing up? And that person were to say to you, tell it the name of the song that you want to play, and it will set itself up.
Oh,
okay, that's pretty good, right? Now, it's not voice activated yet, but it's about as close as it can get. And that's where this song setup feature comes in. Now, on most of the Lowrys, if you have a song setup, it's going to be in the middle of the panel here. And if you literally turn the instrument on and don't hit anything else, nothing over here, and you hit this button that says song setup, you'll see a listing of songs alphabetically dependent upon the instruments you have. The longer the list will be, okay? And if you find a song that you want to play and it's in here, you just hit select. And one that I often jump to here, because I think it's a great illustration of this feature, is the song Happy Together by the Turtles. I want to imagine me and you and me. Okay. Now, I haven't hit any buttons. This upper level still sounds like it did when I powered it up. This bottom level does the same thing, but it says Happy Together in the screen. So when I hit select, I don't know if you'll be able to see this from where you're sitting, but a bunch of lights is going to turn on. Done. Now all I need to do is play the song. Now, to raise question, do you have to use what they chose? And the answer is no. You don't have to use what they chose. You don't even have to play that song. It will match that song best. And if you don't want to hit any buttons, you don't have to. So if I say, okay, I have that music, I open it up, I play my first chord. It's happy together by the Turtles. Okay. Now, again, you don't have to play that song. A lot of students have this feeling that, well, my instrument has X amount of songs in it, so I can only play this many songs with that feature. You can play any song that reminds you of that song. So if I were to go to, let me pick a different one here. I'll go the other way. Should have went the other direction. I'm looking for a march. Because marches you can kind of jump back and forth with. Okay. 76 trombones. So I'm going to hit select here with 76 trombones. Now, I haven't, again, hit anything over here or anything over there. I just scrolled through and found the name of that song. I hit select, it retools itself, and now it sounds like this. I went to It's a Small World, and I started with 76 trombones. So you can use that song or any song. But again, I feel like I'm answering Ray's question, probably going or giving you a roundabout. But I'd start there. I'd start to at least give an idea or listen to what they've chosen. And with our arrangement this week, we used a fairly good amount of additional things. So it's likely that you're probably going to have to make some changes throughout the song that are not going to be in the song setup. But if you're just looking to practice the song, I have some students, and if you're one of these students, I mean, I guess you can tell me if you want to be honest, but I have some students that say, I guess if they were honest, you know all of those directions you give me? I don't do those. I don't do. I just play. Okay, which is fine. Yeah. Now, one of the reasons I give the directions is that it's encouraging you, hopefully, to get to know your instrument a little bit better. So if I say, you know what, gang, when we get to the second page, I want you to add the drums. That's because I want you to learn how to do that, so that you can do it in the future. You can do it on your own, or whatever the case may be. But again, there are some players that say, I don't do any of those things. You give me the song and practice the song, which is fine. Okay. And if you do that, the song setup is awesome, because you're not hitting any buttons. You're just practicing the song. Okay? Now, this is something that is not just relative to Lowry. Yamaha has the same thing. Now, all I did was turn this on. It's going to sound like a piano, up and down here. But it has a feature on it, not called Song Setup. I may have spoken about this week. You're certainly not going to be able to see the screen, I think, from the camera here. But there's a little section in the screen called Music Finder. And when I touch Music Finder, it gives me a listing of, so this is, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I see 18 pages here. So 18 times 8 is, okay, all right, thank you. I wasn't even doing it. I was just waiting for one. I might have looked like I was doing the math. I was just waiting for you to do it. So there are 18 pages worth of these specific songs in here. I believe, don't hold me to this, but I think there's something like 2,500 songs in here. Okay, but it works the same way. The same, if you have songs set up, this works the same way that yours does. You find the name of the song that you'd like. Now, the reason that this has 18 pages here, and obviously I told you there were more songs, is because earlier I was looking up the word guitar. And this is going to give me either styles that have a guitar in the background or songs that have the word guitar in the title. Okay, so it's just it's a keyword search. Well, if you remember last week we did the song Pink Panther. Do the same thing like that. Okay, I can go into that feature. Now I'm just going to change the word guitar to say pink. P-I-N-K. Hit OK. It's going to, it says it's executing. And then I will see there's not going to be anywhere near as many songs that have the word pink in the title. There's only 4 here, one of which is 2 different renditions of the same song, Cherry Pink and Apple Blossom White, Pink Houses and Pink Panther, which is the one we want. So I just touch it, and I'm done. I don't need to do anything else. I can if I want to, but just like I did on the Lowry, if I just play my first chord, it knows the song that I want to play. So it's chosen sounds on this side. It's chosen sounds on this side. It's chosen a tempo, which you can change on either one of these. You don't have to stick with the tempo it's chosen. And I know we played this one a little bit slower. So if I bring this down to 90, which is where I think we did it, again, I haven't hit any buttons. All I did was hit power and looked up the word pink. And when I play my first chord, there's the footsteps of Inspector Clouseau there. There's my introduction. There's my flute to start. Song, it'll give you another arrangement. So, I mean, that's, do you have to use that setting? No, but it's a great place to start, and you can always change it. I don't have to stick with that. If I start manipulating buttons, so you can change things. You don't have to stick with what they chose, but it's a great place to start. Absolutely.
So what did you do over there when you changed songs? You hit a button.
When I changed from those songs like McNamara's Band, I just played the songs. What I did do is I changed levels to make it sound a little bit different.
I thought you hit a red button.
You hit the red button.
Well, I did hit a red button
No,
to
no,
set up
no.
76 trombones.
Over
No,
there.
keep going.
There.
Oh, on this one?
No.
Then
You
go
hit
next
that.
to the stop button.
Yeah.
Yeah, run next to it.
Phil.
That one.
Oh,
I hit Phil.
Okay.
Phil.
Yeah.
Phil?
So,
Oh, okay.
so the reason that I hit that, wow, y'all are quick today. I thought I snuck that one by. So I hit that because it gave me a transitional sound.
Oh, okay.
Think of it this way: it filled in the time that it took me to think about the notes of the next song. I kind of had to remember what they were if I was going to play it by memory or by ear, and I needed a second to do that. I mean, that's one of the great things about the fill, and every single one of you has a fill button. I often speak about the fill in terms of, well, if you have tied notes, you can hold down the fill. And Susan, I see you're looking at your owner's manual. You have it, okay? On yours, it's called FX. Okay, and think of it as special FX.
Okay.
Okay, but they do the same exact thing. And again, you can hit it when you have tied notes. You can hit it when you're changing arrangements, like I did there. Maybe you're changing to another sound, be it by changing levels or by hitting a button. You can hit it if you lose your spot in the music. Now again, I know this does not happen to anybody here, but maybe some people in the studio audience lose their spot. See, they can't talk back to me, so I can yell at them. If you get lost in a song and you want to fake it, I guess is one way to put it. So we choose a beat, and here's my count. I just lost my spot in the music. I don't know where I'm supposed to be. That's where I'm supposed to be. And you can say to somebody, I didn't get lost. I just want to put a little fill in there. All right? And it will fill for as long as you hold the button down for it. Okay? Now, some of you have the option of the fill actually being attached to your foot pedal down on the floor. Okay? The benefit to that is you don't have to reach up and hit the button. All right? There are some songs where you may find that you want to use the fill as an additional sound with the beat itself. Okay? And let's say you're playing the waltz. The really, really nice fill on the waltz, with a waltz on the Lowry is just a regular waltz. This isn't a variation. It's a harp player. Okay, so here's my waltz. That's not my waltz, that's Hawaiian. Here's my waltz. Find that that's a sound that you'd like to utilize while you're playing. Now, the tough thing about the button is that one of the great advantages of the button is also one of its great disadvantages. The button will turn itself off, which is a great advantage, because if you reach up to hit it, you don't have to reach up to hit it again. But it turns itself off at the beginning of the next musical phrase, which is basically at the beginning of the next measure. Which means if you want to use it sporadically throughout the song, or maybe for lengthier amounts of time, you have to do one of two things. One thing that we could do is we could reach up with probably our left hand to do it. Now there's a benefit to it being on the left hand side, and that is because our chords hold for us. Okay? And that's the same thing on these as well. They really built these things very similar. The fill on here is called break, and look where it is, right above where your left hand would be. Because on both of these instruments, when you play your chords, they hold. Okay? The same thing happens here. So I can buy time between the chord that I'm hitting and the button. I can lift my left hand up. It's not as if the style completely turns off. It plays until I play a new chord. So I can use my left hand to hit that button, but again, if I only hit it once, it's going to last for about a measure, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. If you hit it towards the tail end of a measure, sometimes it immediately turns off, which is another question I get a lot is, how come I hit the button and I didn't hear the full effect of it? The idea is to try to hit it at the beginning of a measure if you can. Okay? But if you have that option with the foot, you never have to reach up to hit the button. And you'll notice, I don't know if you can see this from where you're sitting, but the light will illuminate when I hit it with my foot. Now, where that is, on the right-hand side of your volume foot control, there's a little rocker switch. And when you hit that switch, it gives you the fill. Okay, it's not on every instrument. It is on some instruments. Some other instruments have a switch on the left-hand side. Some instruments have both. Okay, the switch on the left is not the fill. The switch on the left, I guess we can cover a little bit later if you'd like to. funny enough, I stopped on the page that this references in the Easy 10 owner's manual, which is page 18, which talks a little bit about the fill. But anyhow, if I push my foot to the right-hand side, that fill button will come on. So if I'm playing the song, continually reach up to hit it. But that's, gosh, I'm going off in rabbit holes here with these answers, but that's the button I hit. That's what I hit when I went through those songs. And again, it was just to literally fill in the blank between the 2 songs or 3 songs I played.
And how did you change to the 3 songs if you didn't have to scroll to the next song?
Because I had the song in my head. I think I understand your question. All of those songs use the same beat.
Right.
So that's why one of the reasons that I did that is because I had said prior to that, you're not limited to only playing the song that it says in the screen. You know, for example, here's another one, No Business Like Show Business. I went by that one earlier. This arrangement sounds perfect for that song. You don't have to play that song. I can start out with that song if I want. There it is, No Business Like Show Business. Here's my beat. But I could play Everything's Coming Up Roses. Christmas music today.
But for someone who doesn't know the songs in their head, you have to stop and find the song.
Well, if you need the sheet music, yeah, but you wouldn't have to change the settings. This is saving you from needing to change the settings. You know, in that I know a lot of songs in my head means that I can transition into songs probably a little bit simpler than you might be able to, but I didn't hit any buttons changing through all 4 of those songs. Just use the same sound.
But if I wanted to find another song, I'd have to hit scroll. Or songs.
But I never did that. I found No Business Like Show Business, and I knew those other songs would work well with it.
But if I wanted to do that.
Well, you could do that same thing. Now that you know that all of those songs work with that, you could say, okay, I know he played No Business Like Show Business, which is what it says in the screen, but he also played Oklahoma. He also played We Need a Little Christmas. Everything's Coming Up Roses. So I guess you would need to know the other songs that would go with it, and that's something that you may not know readily. But in terms of the music, you'd have to have the music if you don't know it by heart. And you notice I only played a little bit of each one because I don't know a lot of songs by heart in sum total. I know like 2 lines, 3 lines. Okay. But yeah, I mean, you have a ton of songs in there, but looking at it from that perspective, that you're not limited to playing that song, makes it seem like there's a lot more. That way you're not kind of pigeonholing yourself into, I can only play this song, because that's not the case. Yes, sir.
Can we on song select?
Yeah.
Okay, I know the concept about it.
Okay.
Okay, that you have the song in there, it's going to pick everything the song.
Yep.
But when you hit a note, does that whole song gonna stop playing and that you can't play with it, or?
So you're not talking about song setup, you're talking about the one next to it that says songs.
Song. I'm
Okay.
sorry, yeah.
So you can use songs for, or in a couple different ways. You can use songs if you're cleaning the house
Okay.
and you just want to listen to the instrument play some songs. What seems to be very popular with a lot of students here is when someone comes over to the house and they say, "Ooh, I see you got a new instrument. Why don't you play for me?" And you say, "How about we let the instrument play for you? Because I don't want it." Okay, so you choose songs, it'll play a song. You can play along with them. The keys will still work. And that's one of the great benefits of the keys being able to work. It's one of the reasons why they let the keys work, is so you can play along with them.
Okay.
And one of the great things about that, I found that the built-in songs are beneficial in a few respects. One, it's not playing a recording of the song. Now, that might sound funny because you're hearing a recording of the song, but here's what I mean when I say that. It's not playing a recording in that you can change the things you're hearing and the instrument will react when you do. In other words, if it was playing a recording and I wanted to speed it up to play twice as fast, it would sound like Alvin and the Chipmunks. And if I were to slow it down twice as slow, it would sound like this. And I wouldn't be able to change and put the piano on instead of the strings or the vibes or bring in the drums. You can do all of that with these built-in songs.
Okay.
You can affect the way that they sound. If the song is a waltz, you could hit gospel. It's going to sound ridiculous, but you could, because it's not playing a recording of the song as much as it's actually physically playing the song. It's just you're not watching the keys go down. Let me show you what I mean here. So if I go into songs, we'll go to Jingle Bells. I don't know why I'm going with Christmas songs today, but forgive me. Jingle Bells. Sound pretty awful if you wanted to.
It's playing the notes and the chords also, right?
It is, but the keys still work. So one of the benefits is, let's say I go back to Jingle Bells here. Now, it showed me right in the screen. You're gonna have to take my word for this.
Okay.
This is at 105 beats per minute.
Yep.
Okay. If I decide that I want to play along with the instrument, I got to keep up with it. So it's a way for you to be able to tell, am I actually at 105 beats per minute? Or am I at wherever I put it, because I can change it? So I can hit these keys. The dogs are down here. Okay? And I could play on either level. I don't know if you want to use the dogs the whole time, but if I, again, restart it. It's a way of, and it's one thing to put the tempo on, and I don't care what tempo you are on, but I want you to know that wherever your tempo is that you've decided to put it, that you're actually there. And that's one way that you can tell, because they're going to play it at whatever tempo that you put it at, and it's your job to keep up with them.
That's a good way to practice.
It's a great way to practice. Absolutely.
If you hit the wrong key, you're going to know you hit the wrong key.
Absolutely. Another great instance, or for instance, is I've had students that have had strokes. No abuse of this left hand. It plays the chord. You don't have to play the chord. plays it. You just play the right hand. Some people, that's all they want to do is play the right hand. You play the right hand, and that'll play those chords for you. So, yeah, you can use it. Will play the whole song from beginning to end, but there's nothing to say that you can't play along with it, which is great. You know, otherwise, you know, it would literally just be playing a recording, and you really couldn't use it for any other reason. Okay.
How come you had the dogs on both levels?
I didn't.
You did.
I didn't. Now the dogs are on the. They should still be here. Yeah.
But you went to the
Yeah. So the piano was here, and then the dogs.
How did you get it to go up to the top?
I didn't. I could show you how to do it, but I didn't do that. The dogs were down here the whole time.
No, I know the dogs are down there, but how come we heard the dog sound when you went to the upper keyboard?
Okay. I'm going to try to explain this and not confuse you. Remember how they were playing?
Mm-hmm.
They moved down here.
Oh.
So they put the dogs in there.
Yeah.
So when I heard them using the dogs, I went up top. So I basically flipped locations with them. And that's another...
But how did you do that?
I just moved.
You just did it? It was there?
Well, I heard them all of a sudden down here also using the dog sound.
Oh, okay.
So as soon as I heard the dog sound, it indicated to me that, well, they must be down here. So I went up here instead. And that's one of the nice things about either being in another octave, like on the Easy 3, the Easy 2, or an 88 key instrument. You don't have two levels. So you can always move up an octave, play it an octave higher. So the idea is hopefully that you can hear a distinction between you and them. Because if you're playing literally the same notes as them, it's hard to tell which one is you and which one is not. But if you are on a different level, so if you hear them playing this, you can go, not that you need to use the dogs at all, but you could. And all of a sudden, if they come down here, you can move up there just to hear a distinction between the both of you. Does that make sense? So they did it. I heard where they were, and I just moved to the other level.
Oh, you followed them.
I followed them, exactly.
So when you hit that songs,
Mm-hmm.
you chose Jingle Bell. Is it going to play Jingle Bells over and over?
So that's a good question. It will not. So you can scroll through all of the songs you have, at the end of which you will see, I think it says chain loop.
Oh.
So if you choose chain loop and you hit select, it will loop through all of them,
All this
one after the next. There are some instruments where you can literally have it play the same thing over and over. There are some where they will choose random songs that are in there. For those of you, and I know that I'm speaking to a few of you here that have either fanfares or journeys, our song of the week, Annie's song, is one of your built-in songs. So you could actually do this with that.
with songs.
Yeah.
It's not in song setup.
But it's in songs. It's in songs. I believe it's, Bobby, what did we say, 59? Song 59. So if you go right to that song, everything that I just did there with Jingle Bells, with the dogs, that kind of sounded a little funny. Studio audience, I don't know if I'm out of your range here. Just give me a second. I didn't go anywhere. Did we unplug this yesterday? No. There we go. So I'm going to go to songs. Song 59, you said? 59 is Annie's song. It's going to follow those changes exactly.
Right, so,
But it might follow some of them.
but we could do it ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and again, what I just did with Jingle Bells, you could do with any song. And at the least, even if it's not making all of the changes we made, at least you can tell how fast 130 is, or 120 is, or 115, or 90, or wherever you ended up. Because you can hear it. You can hear them do it. I mean, that's one of the things that is kind of cool about being able to vary the speed is, I know many of you record me when I play at the end of each week's lesson. Most people have smartphones, and I feel like a celebrity at the end of the class because everybody's got their phone out and they're all recording me. The problem is you can only hear it played at one speed because you can't speed that recording up or slow that recording down. It is what it is. But if you're utilizing the songs that are built in and you're lucky enough to have the song of the week built into the machine, you can listen to it at 30. Forget 130. It's going to take a while for it to get done, but you could, and you'll hear exactly what it is, and you can follow along at 90 or at 110 or 150, whatever the case may be, and know that's where you are. Yeah. How are we doing on time? I usually rely on my phone, but it's recording us.
Almost quarter out.
Quarter. Okay, so we got some time. All right. Yeah.
Jim, on the I have a bank setup.
Yep.
And okay, and it's I'm going along with and I pushed the setup of the A, and then I had the tabs.
Yep.
1, 2, 3, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so it's set at a style. Now
Yep.
I decided I want to play in the vintage style. But
Okay.
I can't because it turns off the A, and so therefore I changed the whole setup for the bank. And
It
that's
does,
the same,
it does.
And
So-
that's the same with any of the styles I try.
So vintage is very similar to style setup. Now what vintage is, I know I'm not talking to more than just two of you in here, but you're both sitting next to each other and you both have this feature. Okay. So you're both playing on Rialtos, which are the latest in the line of Lowry's, but Lowry's been making instruments for a long time. Okay. So they had students, I'll tell you where this vintage button came from, and maybe in my explanation of why it exists, you'll understand my reasoning behind it a little bit better. So let's say someone had an instrument that they had for a long time, and they knew that when they hit ballad and they hit number 6, they got the trumpet on the top keyboard and they got the electric piano on the bottom keyboard. I don't know what that's going to give you, but let's just say, okay. All of a sudden they get an instrument like yours, and they hit ballad and they hit, I forgot even, what did I say, 6 or 7? Did I say 7, 6? 6, okay. They get a new instrument, they hit ballad, they hit 6, and they don't get those sounds. And they say, I knew where all of these buttons and sounds were on my old one, and now they're all different. It gives me something completely different. Guess what vintage does? It gives you all the old ones. It gives you all the ones from the other, the prior series or the prior model. So if you're very comfortable with where sounds were based upon their numeric numbers here, the same thing on here with these numbers. When I hit 2, I'm going to get a different arrangement than if I hit 3 or hit 4, hit 1 or hit 6 or hit any of those numbers. The same goes on yours, but with every with a new model or a new line that comes out, it's likely that those numbers are going to give you something new.
But aren't you going to screw up the bass?
The bank?
Yeah.
No. Because it's just like rhythm preset. So if you banked something to A1 or A2 or A3 and you hit vintage, all it did was it changed the sounds on those numbers temporarily. Your bank's still there. You didn't lose that stuff.
But it's not set up the way I wanted it.
Of course not, because you set it up with a bank.
Yeah, the bank, all right. But
the vintage doesn't change the background. All the vintage changes is the sound that comes out of the keys. That's all it changes. So the background's going to sound the same whether you hit vintage or whether you're using your pre-arranged setup.
But the light goes off and the sound sounds different.
Well, it will, because it's doing, the vintage is doing the same thing that you did. The vintage is setting up those numbers with sounds, just like the rhythm preset does. You can't keep the rhythm preset and your bank on at the same time. You can use one or the other, because they do the same thing.
So I do lose the bank then if I...
Well, you lose it temporarily.
If I want to go to the style or vintage.
It's on the back burner, if you will. So if you want to bring it back, just hit the bank again.
Yeah, but then the vintage goes off.
What do you mean?
If I hit the A,
yep,
the vintage will go off.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will.
So,
as would the rhythm preset, right. So, or the style setup. So So for those students that don't have this vintage button, you have no idea what I'm talking about. If you have style setup, which every one of you actually has, it was called rhythm preset before, but style setup is this button here to the left. It's usually near the middle of the screen if you have a screen. Well, what does that button do? It sets the keys up based upon the style you've chosen. Remember we were talking about song setup earlier? Well, style setup is a bit more of an ambiguous arrangement where it's not focused on a specific song, it's focused on a specific style. That's doing the same thing that you would be doing if you were saving sounds to a bank. So they can't exist together. You're using one or you're using the other.
Right.
So if you've saved your things into the A bank and all of a sudden you hit style setup or vintage or whatever, these things aren't gone, they're just over here. And then you use these other ones, and then when you want to bring them back, you just hit the button and they come back. But you can't use them together. You never will be able to, and you never could. Use one or the other.
Do I get another question? Or am I taking up 7?
I locked the door, so I locked
Only
the other
only
one.
one question, that's it.
Does anybody have, well, I'll table it for just a second, but does anybody else have a question just so Bert doesn't feel like he's taking over here?
I do.
Oh, okay. And Susan, I'll get you next, and then Bert, I'll come right back to you.
I have a memorized question.
Yes.
Can you memorize just the chords? Or do you have to play the whole
Memorize or record?
memorize?
Yeah.
So if I but I have to play the whole
That's recording it, though.
series. That's recording.
That's recording it.
What's
So.
memorizing?
Well, what Memorize does is Memorize lets you change to a new arrangement more quickly in the middle of the song. So it's a little bit more work at the onset because you have to look through the song, look to see what the song is requiring of you or asking of you. And then you, by memorizing, which you can do, you set up your individual numbers in the middle of the instrument with the sounds you want. So if I want to add in the drums in the middle of the song, I don't need to go find the drums, I just need to hit the number that I put them on. If I want to add strings into the left hand, like we did this week, I just hit the number I put them on, I don't have to go look for them in the middle of the song. I'm going to look for them at some point, I'm going to look for them before I start. But when I set it up, all I need to do is hit the number. So that's memorizing. What I think you're referencing is recording. And can you record just the left hand? The answer is yeah.
No, I'm talking about just memorizing something on each button.
Mm-hmm.
So when I want to add the drums or whatever you just
Mhm.
said, I hit a different button. to
Yeah,
memorize.
absolutely. Yeah.
But does it pick up, or am I still playing all the other stuff?
Well, with this particular song, they were looking for us to add, and add. So every time that we hit a number, we added something to what the previous number didn't have. So you kept everything you started with, you just kind of piled more stuff on. But that's just because that's what this song was asking of us. Didn't have to, the next number could have something completely different.
It sound any different to me. Every time I press the number.
Well, did you save it, or were you using what they had in there?
I did.
You did.
I did memorize.
So it should sound different. It shouldn't sound remarkably different, but there should be a difference. You know, in other words, I didn't save it onto the fanfare, the journey or the fanfare this week. I saved it onto here because this is what I played. So if you listen to these numbers, this is what the beginning of Annie's song sounded like. Okay. Now I'm going to hit button number 5. Now this right hand, no change. When I hit 5. But listen to the strings in the left hand come in. Okay? So this is what it sounded like without the strings. That's a change in the left hand. Okay? Now, I'm going to hit 6. Tell me if you hear a difference with 6. Anybody hear a difference with 6? If you did, you're lying, because there's no difference between 5 and 6, okay? So why did I put the same thing on 6? I didn't. My change on 6 was in the right hand, wasn't in the left hand. The change on, now I'm using 4, I started with 4. You could start with 1. A lot of people started, and they put them in numerical order starting with 1. I had stuff on these other buttons I didn't want to lose yet, so I started with 4. Okay. I can make a change in the right hand, the left hand, or both. Now the first change I made was in the left hand. That was where those strings came in. So I started out all alone like this. Here's my beat. Now here's those strings. Right hand change. But yeah, you can just change the left hand and not the right, or it can be anything, really. It could be tempo. You could save tempo. That's a great reason to have that option, is if you have a song where the tempo changes.
With Memorize.
Yeah. Yeah, so you could save anything. You could save left hand, right hand, drums, tempo, AOC, anything. Rhythms, if you changed beats in the middle of the song, not that that's probably going to happen a lot, but you could. Yeah. Susan, you had a question.
Yeah, so I typically don't use my rhythms because it throws me off.
Okay.
But I'm finding if I use my easy button,
Yep.
the drums, I can't add and subtract the drums, it doesn't seem. When I put the rhythms on, it
Right.
does.
Right.
But with the easy button, it doesn't seem to. And the OAC doesn't seem to make any difference either, although I haven't tried them
Okay, so
left
they're-
hand, right hand together because I ran out of
So
time.
those are acting normally. Okay. The reason that you're not going to hear drums is precisely what you said, because you haven't chosen a rhythm. You haven't chosen a rhythm. Okay. Because the drums are injected into the song with the rhythm. That's why it's called rhythm. Okay. Now the AOC. I guess the first, I'll try to make this not an incredibly long answer. I know I'm not very good at short answers, but what the AOC is it takes, easy way to explain it. It takes the chord that you're playing in the left hand, and it takes the notes of the chord. Even if you're only playing one finger, the instrument knows what the other fingers are. It takes those notes and it adds them to what you're playing in the right hand.
So I have to be using both in order
Exactly.
for the AOC to work.
Exactly.
That's what
It doesn't know which notes to add into the right hand if you're not playing a chord, because the chord is what tells it which notes to add in. So you have to play the chord. B, you have to play the right chord. Because if you play the wrong chord, it ain't going to work. It'll work, but it's going to add the wrong notes to the right hand. I've used this story often, but I can remember when that feature was first introduced to me, and I learned how to play before that existed. So I played all of my fingers in my right hand, and I'm playing all my fingers in the left. So to see a button, which would have saved me about 20 years of lessons, I thought was pretty darn cool. And I had someone come in, and I said to them, you got to see this button. You got to try this out. When you get to the second page, hit this button. Now, what I didn't take into account is the fact that their left hand was not really strong. So when they were making mistakes in their left hand, it was manifesting itself in wrong notes being added to their right hand. And they finished playing, and they said, I don't want to sound rude, but that button is terrible. Why would anyone ever want that? I sounded better without it. And that's why, because they were playing the wrong chord. So it's an awesome feature to use, but you have to be very careful to play the right chords. Okay, but yeah, that's work. That's functioning normally. Got to play the chords for the AOC. Have to use a rhythm to get drums. Bert, we can come back to you.
Say please. Mine is back again to style.
Okay.
I know one time you told me what alto style was.
Yes.
I cannot find any difference on the alto style. And
As compared to what?
if I set up a song,
Mhm.
banking or what have you.
Yep.
All right, and then I decide, all right, now I want to go into the altar style because
Yep.
I could use the use the other two styles.
Okay.
All right, so I push it. Now that's for the bass, right?
For a lot of things.
Yeah. Well, when I push the altar style though, that's going to reflect.
It's for the left hand.
to the-
Yeah.
Yeah. Bass.
Yeah.
All right. Now, I push the freaking buttons. Excuse me. I push the button.
PG here.
I push the button, the tabs. All
Right.
right. And I do not. And of course, it's already set up.
Right. Right.
I push those buttons and.
You talking about the numbers? When you say those buttons, I push those buttons. You hit your numbers.
Or on the bass, the yellow buttons, they light up.
Okay.
All right. So now if I have like a flute playing,
Right.
and that lights on under a flute, I push tap
Okay.
that button, and the flute will come on the
Right.
screen.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Now if I push the alternate, I can push that again. It will still be the same.
But you don't notice any change with the altar style at all?
Not really. No, I don't.
Okay.
I know a couple of
'Cause
songs
you
had.
You should, because I guess the short answer is the altar style alters the style.
Say that
Okay.
again.
I said the altar style alters the style.
Yeah.
Okay, so goodbye, folks. That's it. No, it's not going to change any buttons per se. I mean, you're going to hit a button that's going to make a change, but it's altering or changing what the background sounds like. The band that's playing along. It's not going to. If you hit strings or a yellow button, it's not going to do anything to those. It alters the way the background sounds.
But how do I know that it's changed?
You can hear it, yeah. I mean, most of them, it's a pretty big difference. I mean, I'll give you an example. Here is, we're playing New York, I played New York earlier. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing on here. So I'm going to go, and I'll go through I think this is in the, you know what? I don't know if it's in the song setup or not. It probably is, but I'm not even going to go look for it. Okay, so here's New York. Now, I like to call the altar style, and I got this from Dennis Awe. He said, you know, when you're on stage, there's a couple phrases that you can say to the band where they know what to do. And one of the things that you will hear often is the singer will say, "Take me home," which is very appropriate because I think we're pretty much to the end of our hour. And that's him telling the band, "I'm done," or her telling about, "Well, I'm done. This is our last song. Let's go out with a bang. This is it." Okay? Think of your altar style as a "take me home" button. Okay, so if you're going to play New York, I have it off right now, altar style's not on, okay, and I'm going to start out with that beat. Between me hitting it but there's a difference there. So this is what it sounded like again with it off. Take me home. Pretty big difference, right? Now some of them may not be quite that drastic. I chose one that you really notice. But there's a difference. There's a difference with all of them. Okay? But all it does is it alters this. It alters nothing over here. It's not going to change anything on the numbers. It just changes the way the background itself sounds. Okay, does that make sense? That's all it does. But and think of it this way. How many rhythm styles do you have on the Rialto?
Oh, thousands.
Okay, well, I have no.
Four, I think.
I don't think you have 4,000 styles, but you have. Let's say you have.
Styles. Oh, the rhythms, yeah.
Yeah, I should know this.
Yeah.
I should know this. If anybody in the room should know this, I should know it. I don't remember. Let's say you had 412 styles. You might have more. I don't know.
Yeah.
Alter style just gave you 824 because you can use it with or without that button. So it doubled the amount of styles you have. I think of it that way. But yeah, there's a difference between the two.
Now,
Absolutely.
one second question is,
Okay.
I'm the well, half of the.
Go ahead.
When I have the tabs on the bass,
Mhm.
you know, when you set up
Yep.
a song, what have you, they all light up.
Yep.
All
Yep.
right, and that's great.
Okay.
Now, then I got curious and I started pushing those tabs,
Okay.
and I find that a myriad of them don't have nothing comes up on the screen.
Nothing comes up
No.
on the screen. Well, if
For instance, like when you told me when you're setting up a song,
right.
turn everything off, everything
Okay.
off.
Okay.
But many times when I set up a song,
Right.
those red.
Now you're talking about the
those
tabs themselves.
These,
That you're talking about the tabs themselves.
right,
Okay.
they light up.
So the only reason that a tab would show you something in the screen is if the tab had more than one function. If it's just on or off, they don't need the screen to show you on or off because there's a little light above it.
Yeah.
But some of your tabs you can hit and then you can scroll through various things that tab has on it. So if your tab has that, if the individual tab you hit has that feature, it's going to show you something in the screen. But if the tab is just tab on, tab off, like it's organ flutes, flute 8, flute 16, that's either on or off. You can't change that. It's either it's on or it's not on. So they're not going to give you the ability to see anything in the screen because there's no reason to. But if you hit, if you hit pedal genius or lower sounds or something like that, that's pretty ambiguous. That means you can put multiple things on that tab. So when you hit it, the screen is going to let you scroll through various things you can put there. But if it's just a tab that has no other function either than being on or off, it's not going to tell you. It doesn't need to.
Okay, because what I was doing then, I was looking at this sound,
Okay.
and to get a number,
Right.
and then I would plug in that number, and then I would hit the lowest setting on the yellow tab.
Well, you can do that too. So if you hit the number and then you touch the tab you want that number to go to, it'll
If I hit,
go right to that number.
right, all right. So if I hit the tab, I can scroll. It will come up on the screen. I can scroll it on the screen.
If it's a tab that gives you multiple options, yes.
Oh,
Okay. Last one. Well, we passed 12. We probably are. I can do this all day, but I'm sure you all have other places to go. Did we break 12 o'clock?
4 minutes past.
4 minutes. Okay, so we'll go one more. Yes.
And some of the lessons that we've had,
Yes.
this might say like add jazz guitar.
Yeah.
How?
Ah. Talk about a tough question to give you right at the end. So there's a couple different ways you could do it. The easiest way for you to add something very common, like the jazz guitar, because that's a relatively. If you ask me about the flugelhorn or the something you wouldn't use very often, it'd be a different answer. But the jazz guitar is a pretty basic instrument. You have a button on the Rialto, so I'm going to speak to your instrument, that says favorites on the right hand side. Okay, and what favorites is, if you hit it in your screen, you will see at least two pages worth of the most common instruments that are used in music. So you're not going to see things on there like the bassoon or the bagpipes or the sitar. Now you have all of those instruments, but they're not going to be on that screen. You're going to see things like the piano, the violin, the clarinet, the trumpet. You'll see things like that. Jazz guitar is going to be one of those things. I'm almost positive, particularly because you have two different pages. So if you touch it in the screen, then you just assign it over on the right-hand side to the button that you want it to be on, and then it will automatically be on one of the two levels. So if you touch it in the screen, say, okay, jazz guitar, you hit the button that says sound over here, and it will automatically be on one of the two levels dependent upon the box that you chose. Now you could also, if it was a kind of an oddball sound, you could figure out what the numeric value that instrument had, and you can dial that in. That's what Bert was talking about earlier. But if it's just something like jazz guitar, which is pretty commonplace, that's going to be your easiest way to do it. Okay. Well, this was good. I hope everybody got something out of this. I know Bert did, but I hope that. I hope. I'm glad you came. It would have, we would have been a little quiet. We would have been done in 3 minutes.
I have lots more questions.
So we'll do a buttons and tabs class at the end of next month without Bert.
You have to have your own.
I can pick out more classes.
But I have it scheduled for the last Saturday of June, and I will have our schedules, our weekly schedules next week. So don't let me forget to give you that. But just pencil that in, and again, I find these to be pretty helpful. I hope you got something out of them, and don't be afraid to ask questions in between now and then, be it during a private lesson or during the groups. But I find that these times are better because, in a way, better because the clock's not on me to teach you a piece of music. We just talk about features and how to set things up. All right. So everybody out in internet land, the end of next month we'll be doing this again. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Hey, thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
There you go. And the door's unlocked. You go.
Everyone have a good rest of the weekend.
Yeah.
I'll see you Wednesday, John.